Hey, it's Mark Eitel, host of the Mr. Mortgage Show, and you are listening to the Daily Dose. Today is Wednesday, June 29th, and I wanted to share a conversation that I had with a friend of mine today. I was talking with my friend Juan Alcala, who runs a real estate team in both Detroit, Michigan, as well as Tampa, Florida. And this guy is super sharp, and he and I crunch data all the time. He's one of the few guys that enjoys the numbers as much as I do. We were talking about as the market begins to transition, there are a lot of people who are ready to pounce on opportunity. They're seeing more inventory come to market and they're believing that there's going to be some opportunities out there. So we talked about a couple of rules of thumb to consider when you're evaluating investment property. And if you're buying a property to rent, there's an old rule of thumb called the 1% rule. It is a very fast and easy way to evaluate the purchase price versus the rents or the gross monthly income of the property. This doesn't take all costs into consideration. That's why I say it's just a rule of thumb. But if you're looking at a property that is $300,000, the 1% rule would dictate that you would need to be able to rent that property out for $3,000. And that's based on the purchase price. So if you've got to buy a property for $300,000 and put another $50,000 into it to get it rent worthy, then you're going to want to be able to rent that for $3,500 a month. So take 1% of the purchase price. And if that's the average monthly rental amount of that particular area, then it's worth pursuing further and doing further due diligence. Again, this is a rule of thumb. It doesn't take into consideration taxes, insurance, or any of the other expenses, but it gives you a jumping off point where you know if it's worth pursuing a property. If you're looking at a property that's $500,000, $500,000, and the average area rental is only $3,000, then that's never going to pass the 1% rule. So just a good rule of thumb, 1% of the purchase price should be the minimum rent that you can get for that particular property. Another rule that we talked about is the 70% rule. And this is a rule of thumb designed for people who are considering buying and flipping a property. The 70% rule dictates that you should not pay more than 70% of a property's after repair value. If you're going to buy a property that has an after repair value of $200,000, then you should pay no more than $140,000 for it. That's just a rule of thumb. That's the 70% rule, and it's applied to flips. So a $200,000 property you should pay no more than $140,000 to meet that 70% rule. A $300,000 property, you're going to pay no more than $210,000. Now, that's just, again, a jumping off point, a very quick evaluation method. You're still going to have to do detailed calculations on the total renovation costs to make sure that you still have profit in the deal. But the 70% rule is a quick evaluator of a flip property, and then the 1% rule is a quick rule of thumb to evaluate rental property. So I hope that helps. It's super interesting to be able to just very quickly look at a property and know if it makes sense to do any further investigation. And these two calculations have proved to be a good starting point historically. So if you found that interesting, if you did, I'd love you to share the show. If there's anybody that you know, friends, family, or coworkers who have real estate questions, they're thinking of buying, they're thinking of selling, they're just confused by this market and want some answers, please share the show with them. And remember, you can always listen to the radio show live on iHeartRadio every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. Just go to the iHeart app and search the Mr. Mortgage Show and you'll find us. Or you can check out the podcast page, Mr. Mortgage Radio. All of the show replays as well as the Daily Dose podcasts are there. And lastly, you'll find all of the data that we use for the radio show at the Facebook page. Just go to Facebook and search the Mr. Mortgage Show. Again, my name is Mark Eitel, host of the Mr. Mortgage Show, and you've been listening to the Daily Dose. We'll talk again tomorrow. Thanks.